Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Mercedes Fernandez, coming to us from the Netherlands, and she is an entrepreneur, and she's actually a kinesiologist. She's also a founder and CEO, originally from the San Jose Bay Area. So today's talk is going to be really interesting around health and entrepreneurship, and I'm really happy to have her on. So, Mercedes, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Christopher. Really excited to be here. I'm excited to see what we're going to jump into in this conversation and go into different avenues.
Yeah, so briefly introduce yourself and talk about your journey, your background, how you got started, and we'll dive right into the conversation.
Absolutely. I started in 2015. I graduated from Cal State University, Northridge, as a kinesiologist. And at that point, I was working with adapted physical activity. I learned through a student service learning program how to work with the elderly, people with TBI, stroke, in both a rare and aquatic setting. And at the time as well, I was taking care of my grandfather. We were really close, and so over time, I started to work in clinics and getting a clinical background and then seeing that the biggest gap in the health and fitness industry was we weren't really paying attention to older adults. We weren't really focusing on, personal training and geriatric programs. And maybe, yeah, you had silver sneakers here and there, but what were we doing for our aging population? What were we doing to set ourselves up to to remain active in later life? And so that's where I created my first company. I guess you can say that was became my first solo entrepreneur journey of being a personal trainer, doing in-home health therapy. And so fast forward from there to now, I've created three companies, one being a startup. And you're born and raised in Silicon Valley, it's just deeply ingrained to, push and push and go, and you can't slow down. But I moved to Europe a year ago, and seeing the difference, the lifestyle of like it's not so fast paced. Everyone really takes their time, and also they're active at the same time. So I've learned so much. And I guess it just kind of landing the conversation here is that the journey of entrepreneurship has been, so challenging. I know you had a podcast on founder's journey and founder's fatigue, and it's such a real thing. It's a real experience of, being a dreamer, being creative, being an entrepreneur is like, it's really in you, and having the drive and the motivation to stick to it even through, for me, it was changing countries. I didn't think that was really going to cause me to have to close my startup. I thought maybe I can handle it from, across continents, and ultimately ended up being too challenging. So I had to make a decision to close that company. But through that experience, I learned how to adapt and adjust and create a new company here in Europe, a more virtual, more remote, taking what I wasn't able to do in San Jose and applying it here. And just, I guess, my purpose here in having this conversation with you is kind of guiding through health and entrepreneur. The journey is very actually similar. It's intricate. It's like you put in the work. You have to put the work in. You fall, you fail, you feel tired, and you keep going. Like, what's the end goal, right? The end goal is let's be happy, let's be healthy, and let's be successful.
Yeah, it's a really great introduction, and there's so much different paths that we can take with the conversation. And one of the conversations that one the first question I have is, what was your decision to move to Europe? Was it more of a like a lot of my colleagues, they founded and started companies here, but they found like it's just so hostile to startups and just like the regulations and everything. They're like, yeah, I'm just gonna move to Argentina or Europe or Asia. And there's so much it's like so in but what was your impetus for relocating to Europe?
Yes. Aside from a partnership, I was at the point as well where I had been, trying to get into the healthcare system for so long, just trying to get into Medicare, trying to get in as a supplemental benefit program. And for me, just finding all the red tape, seeing how the healthcare system in America is just really murky. It's like there's just all these different avenues. If you know someone, hey, that's great. Like that's your golden ticket. But if you don't, if you're a small little startup, like I was really, really pre-seed, it was challenging. And for me, I thought there has to be more. And so when I moved to Europe, the first thing I did was, I got out in the community, I looked around, I looked into the hospital system, and I had always heard different mixed stories about, the healthcare outside of America, and thinking as an American, like, yeah, the US healthcare is great. There's all these, great doctors, and there are, but the system itself makes it so difficult for people to get the help that they need. And in Europe, it is social healthcare. It is created for everyone to get help. If I need to go to the hospital, I can get all access. So for me, that was kind of my tipping point to also create a company here in Europe.
Really interesting. And kind of because what I've been studying is, United States used to be, I mean, I would say used to be, but for now it's still, we have the most innovative, most valuable companies. We got Meta, Google, Apple, Amazon here, and it's fostered innovation. And there's this thing, it's like, people say, America is the best place to start a company, San Francisco, San Jose. And then now we have emerging countries such as China, India, Latin America, Singapore, London, Dubai. And so is the United States still the best place to like for capital formation, or is there, like, what are you seeing? And then also another follow-up question is, a lot of people say that Europe is like very highly regulatory as well. And people, like, here we hustle, but we're so unhappy. But whereas in Europe and other places, people enjoy more balance, and it's like, and they're a lot happier and they're a lot more successful. Talk about that.
Definitely. I'll start with the first question. I do think that the States really does set up companies for capital, venture capital. You're going to get a lot of money still in the States. I do see that. My partner is also in tech, who's here in the Netherlands as well. And you can just see the comparison. He's worked many years in Silicon Valley as well. And so yeah, of course, you're going to go to the Golden State, California, Silicon Valley. There's money there. But I do also see that there are these other countries that are coming up, Saudi Arabia, Dubai. Um, so I would say that Europe, there is funding, but it's not going to be at the scale in which, Silicon Valley has that funding. So there is that difference there. So I think that's been interesting. So I guess my point is to say it's not impossible, but it's possible to get funding, around the world. But of course, California, but you also, I'm a Californian. Okay. I was born there. And for me, it's like, I look back now and I'm like, it's so expensive. It is increasingly crazy expensive. And I now see why, right? You have all these companies who are bringing in, these jobs and the money and all of that. The follow-up question is, it has been actually a big joy for me to see the quality of life, the change for me. Again, kind of putting it into perspective of someone who grew up in San Francisco, in San Jose, in Silicon Valley, the like, literal heart of Silicon Valley. We can imagine like the cultural constructs that I grew up with of, push and go. My parents have their own company, they're entrepreneurs themselves. And so coming to Europe, grocery stores are closed on Sunday. In the birthplace I lived in Belgium, it was like Sunday is a rest day. And you see Saturday, families are out. People are actually taking time off. No one's working on the weekend, like Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And then, people really set their boundaries for their weekends. And you see that people are biking, rain or shine. In the Netherlands, of course, it's like bike central. And I think it's just so beautiful to see that. And the initial struggle was, or I'm not doing anything. And I feel like I need to work. I need to, I'm so used to Sundays being like brunch day or Sunday being like I'm getting ready for Monday. And I think that there's a big difference there, but that's what also makes it really beautiful. And I have a lot of my siblings still back in California who are living that, you know, I don't know, 50 plus hours working a week, and they're exhausted, but that's the culture.
Yeah, because it was interesting because I spent the summer. We were talking backstage, and I move out of Texas during the summers just because of the brutal heat, and then I relocate to San Francisco. It's really expensive, but I go to I also try to see the other world, and I spent some time in Argentina, and it's just like just people are just a lot the quality of life and just like the cost of living and the standard of living and just like you're having so many entrepreneurs go there just because it's so friendly to the digital nomads. This question, how do you reconcile this dichotomy? Because in the startup phase, man, it's like startup is like you have to pretty much you have to burn yourself out. To kind of you get raise a little bit of pre-seed funding, you get like angel funding, then you get series, and then maybe take it public one day. But if you start a company in like a more like relaxed, less chaotic, less hustle culture, is it more likely to survive than basically just nonstop, just basically go all in and try to create something out of it in San Francisco or elsewhere?
Mhm. That's an excellent question. I believe that I think it really also comes down to the founder, right? Like, I think it comes down to, how are you setting yourself up for success? What's your environment? How motivated are you? Yes, I can throw myself into burnout, which I have many times. It's very hard to kind of come out of that perfectionist role as a founder. You're like, I love this thing. This is my child. This is my idea. And I'm going to nurture the heck out of it. And I think that even at a lower scale in a society that has more of a positive outlook on work life balance, I still struggle sometimes with I'm not doing enough or I'm not pushing hard enough, but also finding, like you said, this dichotomy of like giving myself compassion, or like actually I am doing quite a bit. It just doesn't feel like it because I'm not driving everywhere. I'm not going to this meeting. I'm not pitching here and there. It's different because it's more virtual and I'm in a single place. But I think that the work is still there, and I really don't believe that we have to burn ourselves out and be in this, like, miserable culture to succeed. Yes, you're gonna have people to be saying, like, "Well, if you're not doing it really hard and you're not burning out and you're not, grinding, then you're not a real founder, you're not a real successful startup." We have examples of lots of companies who've made it. I think every company sacrifices, hours of sleep or, etc. But I think we can still go far with effort. I just don't think that we need to burn ourselves out, go all night, have no sleep to get to be successful, whatever someone's level of success means to them.
Yeah, it's interesting because if it's my passion, I'll just go all in. It's just kind of like I'll do it because I love it. It's not just it's because I'm passionate about it. It's not because I'm like hustling and grinding for someone else or for like some status or recognition. It's because I really love it, and it's really reminds me because I have a colleague from college. He moved out to San Francisco, and he took his company public, but he was actually had shifts, so he and his team one would have like 12 hours in the day and then the others would take over 12 hours a night, and so that basically the work was constantly being getting done. And it's interesting, and I talked to a lot of founders who exit, like get acquired or again or go IPO, and they're just like some of it's just so anticlimactic. It's like they'll go into a depression or alcoholic or kind of substance abuse, and because it's just it's just kind of like this idea and this notion of what it is, and once you kind of made it there. It's just like it's just another reality. It kind of reminds me of Michael Phelps when he won all those gold medals, and afterwards he like fell into depression. The how do you so kind of a lot of people are interested and they listen. How do you balance? I don't know if you prefer the term work life integration or work life balance, but how do you balance that with your spouse or your partner, significant other? And like what are the tools and strategies that you use to like kind of maintain a cohesive relationship?
Yeah, excellent question as well. And it's timely because it's something that I've been thinking about and something that I wouldn't say struggle with, but it's a challenge because again, both come from Silicon Valley tech backgrounds, right? And so while he's also moved to Europe for work as well, he's originally European. There's still that part of him that's like, oh, I'm home now and I gotta jump on some more meetings, or I'm choosing to continue to work because that's the culture. That's like, but to answer the question, I think what I've learned lately now is that we've created some boundaries. So we take time to have dinner together. If we can't always do that every night, then on the weekends we make time to have at least one day of the weekend to get out of the apartment. In the Netherlands here in The Hague, we have the beach. So this weekend we were like, let's actually go to the beach. That is really close by, and it's so easy to be cooped up in a cozy little home. But what I think is most important is how are you continuing to, yeah, the work life integration is a great way to say it. I've never heard that one, but creating this space, almost like a container of like, okay, once a night we're gonna have dinner or we're gonna have lunch together, just so we have some moments where we're actually being present. Because I think it's too often too easy to get lost in work because work ends up being this big umbrella, right? It's like this be all end all that we were taught. It's ingrained. Yes, work is very important, but what about the quality of life around you? Who are the people in your life? Do you have a pet? I have two dogs, so for me it's important that I walk the dogs twice a day. And though that's for me my own little personal of thinking of a cup. I'm very imaginative person, but I'm thinking like, that's how I pour into my cup is to make sure that the dogs are getting walked and I'm also walking as well. So it's like who's walking who? But that adds to this to this balance of like, okay, when do you turn off? Because I think we really struggle as a society and as humans, especially those who are entrepreneurs and who really strive and are motivated to create something from scratch is, how are we giving back to ourselves? How are we turning off for a moment and saying, okay, the computer's closed and I'm going to be trying. It's hard because you're always thinking about your job, but really making that effort.
I really like this idea of you talked about boundaries because I actually started implementing just like basically limiting just kind of like frivolous emails or just kind of like turning off my phone or like at night just putting my phone into another room or just like at a certain time just shut off the computer, go out and just kind of drive around, go see the world, talk to, hang out with my friends, hang out with my wife and just like this. I like this idea of just like structured time. The other thing, because you had mentioned there's this whole dichotomy of just because I'm a late Gen Xer, early millennial. Sounds like you're a Gen Z, and this whole like the whole definition like work life balance, work life integration, and then also like in terms of relationships, like this idea of spouse. Like I've heard spouse. Like in my days, it was called significant other, spouse, but now I'm hearing the term partner. I'm just curious. I'm just trying to get a sense of why people are calling their significant others partners. I'm just kind of trying to understand the nuances.
Yeah, I think that's it's interesting you bring up because it makes me ask the question myself, and I've noticed that I'm like borderline millennial Gen Z, and so um, I don't know. I mean, I can't. I can't psychologically, say for the psychological terms for it, but I think for me, I'm not married yet, but sometimes I call him my husband. And so there's a long term there. Um, I don't know. I just don't think that maybe I was come up, but boyfriend also doesn't feel appropriate. So I think that maybe partner is kind of like in between because it's a partnership. Like, we have relationships with everyone. We have relationships with our dog, our parents, our siblings, the person at the coffee shop. That can be considered a relationship. And because I'm not married, perhaps I just lean more to, well, he's my partner. I'm in a partnership. Um, it is still a relationship. But we're not necessarily, he's not my spouse yet. So it's a good question.
Yeah, it's just I was just curious 'cause I'm trying to understand like how people use the term and what it means because a lot of Gen Zs and millennials that I talk to, they're using this term more frequently. So I'm just curious why. Oh, so kind of, tying it back to your startup is so how do you like sounds like in your initial startups you were kind of like a like solopreneur kind of like services. How are you doing it now with are you doing it are you incorporating like how are you thinking about like AI and thinking about like SaaS and incorporating that into your startup? Are you thinking more like platform brand? I'm just curious.
Yes, I think that I've learned so much over the course of the last two companies. And I recently I was made in connection with a couple in Costa Rica who are really, really excellent physiotherapists and marketing and branding. And so they've brought a lot of this, like these skills and these tools that I didn't have, that I don't have, to integrate these different aspects. And I think they're a little bit younger than me, which is great because they're up to date with Oasis and tech, or they're up to date with I feel I'm like in my mid-30s and I just there's a part of me sometimes that thinks like, wow, I'm really like out of the loop, or am I in the am I still in the loop? Um I think that AI is something that can be absolutely useful. The platforms that I am using integrate these awesome tools that we have now to our advantage, right? We have AI to generate content or captions, and I don't use it fully to like create everything. I use it as an advantage. It's like an assistance for me. So I'll write something and then I'll, use some AI to help kind of clean it up. So I think that that's amazing. And I'm really open to this idea of like how to structure a subscription, right? Membership program. Because you're in a health, it's a health company, it's a health startup. It's how can I keep retention? How can I make it more appealing for an older audience to want to continue? What benefits can they get? What perks, right? And all that comes with SaaS and AI and branding and automation. I think for me, what has been so exciting and what I autodidact here, learning on my own, is how do you automate, right? And really, it goes back to that work-life balance, work-life integration. I have learned how to automate a newsletter and content and all these things on all the platforms. So now I can just relax and know that, in the back of my mind, I know that I have things out there and it is doing the work. It's doing the work for me. And so I have more time to take the dogs to the beach, to read, to relax, and, have my set work hours while using and utilizing these really awesome, technological features that are advancing.
Yeah, it's a great it was I really enjoyed this conversation, talking about like a, founder, SaaS founder, just AI, work life relationships, just kind of differences between US and Europe. Really fast. How can people find you and check out your socials, reach out to you and learn more about you?
Absolutely. My website is movement.info, and it's movement with a U. So it's the way you spell it in French. I thought it's just be something, fun. And when I was creating the branding, right, like how do you make something catchy? It really usually has to be a one word, two maybe. company. And I essentially focus on movement. That's my whole jam. That's my bread and my butter, is making sure that us as humans, as we age, how do we just stay mobile so we can be free?
Yeah.
So movement, mouvement.info. There's my AI chatbot on there. So if anyone has questions, you can just ping it and it pings directly to me, my phone, my email. And that's probably the best way. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't have any socials anymore, which has been it's been pretty refreshing actually. I think I'm going on 2 years with like no Instagram, no Facebook. Yeah. And so just email.
No, that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and thanks so much for coming on and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. This has been really fun.